Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion, and as we head into week 9, our guest is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. First of all, we're at the first 8 weeks of the football season going.
It was fast, didn't it? Yeah, it's you and I probably sound like a broken record to some people watching
I
this,
know.
but it does go fast. I mean, it's crazy to think that we're at week 9, and I was discussing with my coaching staff in the meeting. I said, how you get involved in the game and start to get into a rhythm of practices and playing on Friday, and next thing you know, here we are, possibly facing the end of our season. Hopefully we're going to get a couple more games or so if we can get a win on Friday, but either way, the end is close.
Well, and the other thing too is, and this doesn't have to do with football, but I think this is the first week of the 9 that we visited that I haven't had to find a shady spot to wait. And if the sun were out today, I'd be having to find a shady spot because it's been warm all the whole season.
It really has. We haven't had a lot of cold practices or cold nights or anything like that, and so it makes it feel like it's still early in the season when, here we are sitting in mid-October and the season's winding down, and I don't know. The longer I coach, the faster it seems to go, and it's. I kind of down about it. I mean, we're having fun right now. We're playing better, and the kids, I think, are having fun, and we're into a kind of a rhythm of playing well and playing more consistent, and we don't want to be done.
Well, let's talk about last week because that was an important game for the Wildcats. A 55-21 win over Carbondale. Did a couple things. First of all, it guaranteed you second place in the South 7 Conference.
Yeah.
Of course, it's hard to beat a team that doesn't lose a conference game. So,
right.
Althoff won the conference, but you guys finished second. Not only that, but it kept you alive for a playoff bid, and it continues to show the levels that this team is improving to on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's been a interesting year of contrasts. Of early season frustration and just struggling to find ourselves a little bit, and then to see ourselves in the second half of the season a pretty good football team. And isn't that I don't think we were a good football team early. We just weren't putting some things together. The competition level was pretty high. We had to play really well early in the season. Come out of the gate fast. I thought we played good, but not great early. And I feel like we've just, beginning with that Cahokia second half, we've tended to play much more consistent 4-quarter football with kind of pretty good in all phases, and we're putting the puzzle pieces now, I think, in the right spots. And as I said, we're having fun right now, and we'd like to keep this thing going because I told them last night at practice, I said, you're becoming really fun to watch. I enjoy watching them on film. I enjoy watching them in person. I really enjoyed watching our defense and the way they played this year, and so I'm pretty proud of them. To bounce back from an 0-3 start, to play as well as we have, and as you said, get second place in the conference, so that's a pretty big deal, but still got some work to do.
Let's talk about last week's game a little bit. We mentioned the final 55-21. 21's a little deceiving. Of their 21 points, 2 touchdowns on long kick returns, 1 for 99 yards, 1 for 97 yards. I'm sure those are things you'd like to have back, but and you can address that, but then address what the defense did to hold them basically scoreless. Their only offensive touchdown came against the second unit defense.
Yeah, and they didn't have a lot of first downs. I think they 2
into the third quarter.
Right, into the third quarter they had 2 first downs. So I think the score doesn't really reflect how well our defense played, special teams breakdowns. I think maybe it's a little bit of a byproduct of homecoming. We have a huge homecoming celebration. Our kids handled it really well, but it's just hard to be as locked in at homecoming game as you are any other game because how different the schedule is, and every school goes through this. I mean, every coach worries about homecoming. They worry about homecoming for a reason because homecoming it's a different week. The kids eat different. They're out later. They're at powder puff games, and they're playing volleyball games, and they're at pep rallies, and it's a different week. It's a different dynamic. They went to a breakfast 4 consecutive mornings at a grade school, and not that those things aren't great, they're just different. And we tend to be creatures of habit and creatures of routine, and coaches love routine, and homecoming just brings a little difference that I think sometimes when you see breakdowns like we saw in special teams last week, sometimes it can be due to something as simple as just maybe not as focused as we should have been every snap, and maybe special teams. We kind of had it pinned down here late in the end zone, and we let up the gas a little bit, and little young man can fly, and he got by us and kept him in the game early on. So,
I don't want to necessarily downplay any individual effort, but there were three in particular that I wanted to mention from last week's game. The first one we've talked about a lot, the progression of Jake Schmidt as a quarterback,
Yep.
and the decision making he makes. Last week, 12 for 15 passing.
right.
Of his 3 incompletions, 2 were drops, both in the end zone, and the third one was an intentional throwaway when he was trapped behind the defense. The defense was pressuring him. He rolled out to the side. He couldn't get anything, so he basically threw it right over the head of a wide receiver and out of bounds, because even a complete pass at that point would have been a 5 or 6 yard loss. Great decision making in that game.
And I think he's at 68% passing percentage for the year, or close to it, 67. He is just really matured into a good quarterback. Much more than just a game manager. He's a good runner. He's we don't throw a ton, but we've been throwing more, and he's been right on target with everything we've asked him to do. He's throwing a good deep ball. His fast screens have been good. So there's a lot of things I can say about Jake that are really positive. He's had a heck of a year for us.
Another effort that I saw some really neat things with the way Caden Hilliard ran the ball this last week.
Yeah.
Because 89 yards doesn't really stand out, but I started to see the patience that we've been waiting for him to have in the offensive line. And then when he didn't need to, there were a couple times when he blew through the hole right away and got into the defensive secondary.
He did, and I'll take it a step further. He made some contact with people and fought his way into the end zone on 2 of those touchdown runs. So he was willing to be patient. He was willing to explode through the hole when he had to and accelerate. He was willing to run over someone if he had to do it. So a 3 touchdown night and 90 yards in rushing, as you said, and a really good night for Caden. I mean, I've never lost confidence in his ability. I think he's a good running back. He blocks well for us. He's been a decent pass catcher for us, but kind of broke into his own a little bit last week.
The last one, I just got to know, Jack Bundy become a better all-around player since he was going both ways now? Because, we know that he stepped up into the offensive line a couple weeks ago, but he's always around the football on defense too. And, several tackles this past week, plus the fumble recovery.
It's just Jack, he's had a good year for us, and he stepped up and played well. He goes hard. He's a smart kid. He asks great questions in practice. He's always prepared. He's a good leader for us. So those are 3 pretty good single outs. If you're going to talk about 3 guys that I thought had good ball games and had peaked at the right time, it'd be those guys. And they're all 3 good young men, and they've really worked hard. I think they've, they kind of epitomize, I think, what our team has been about, is that we don't have any. You look at our statistics, there's not a lot of standout numbers that would shock anybody. But, there's just a contribution by a lot of different people to make us a better football team. And I think they're making each other better by doing that. It's been good.
You talked about a lot of people, and if you go and look at the stat sheet, 8 different ball carriers and 6 different receivers in the game last week. And that's something you strive to do all the time. We talk about this year after year, and you're reaching that point now where you're getting so many different people involved in the offense.
Yeah, that's a good stat, to know that many guys caught a pass, or that many guys got a chance to carry the football. And I like that. I like getting guys involved. I like spreading the ball around and making us harder to defend so they can't key on one individual. And we sometimes welcome someone keying on an individual. We feel like we can make it pay for that, and so we try to keep the defense balanced. And one time I heard a coach say, we talk too much about balance being passing and rushing yards being balanced. He said, in his opinion, this coach said, I think balance is the number of different people you get the ball to, however you get it to them, running or passing. It's that kind of balance. When you put 4 guys on the field or 5 skill guys on the field, and the defense has to worry about all 5 of them, that's pretty good balance.
When the defense has to worry about 14 of them, that's even worse.
Even better, yeah.
So let's talk about Mattoon. That's your game Friday. It's a place you've been. Mattoon was on the schedule a couple years ago. You played them in the playoffs before, had a classic game in the playoffs, and you're going up against them, what we thought was going to be a win-or-go-home game, potentially, and then they pulled off a nice win last week against Taylorville, a pretty good Taylorville club, to put themselves in pretty good position.
Yeah, I hate to say Mattoon upset Taylorville. I think most of the people picking the game thought that Taylorville was the favorite, but I'm not really going into the game and seeing either team play, so I didn't know. But Yeah, we have a lot of history with Mattoon. You know, I think first or second year here, might have been my first year here, we played Mattoon week 2 in 2002. So we go way back with them. Then, as you said, another 13-14 season or 12-13 season, we played each other home and away in the playoff game. So it's, you know, we're familiar with playing there. They're familiar with us. I see them on film. I see some similarities to the kind of teams they've been in the past. I'm sure they see some similarities with us. Just different kids, but kind of the same schemes. And I have a lot of respect. We love playing there. They're a first-class community, first-class school. Kids are always well coached. They do a lot of things well. They throw the ball well. Got a nice quarterback this year with some guys that can catch the ball. Got a good running back. Defense is solid. So it's going to be a tough ball game for us on the road. But you know, if it's meant to be, and we're supposed to be a playoff team, this is a ball game you got to go win.
How much now, if you go back and look at games like Cahokia when you were 0-3, Centralia when your backs were up against the wall, to get wins in those important games like that, how much does that help now this week? Because there's not as much pressure on Mattoon to win. Even if they're 6-3, they likely won't get a first-round home game because they've got 5 wins and they've got some pretty decent playoff points. They're more than likely in the playoffs. So the pressure is more on your team to win than it is on them.
I feel like we've been under pressure since the Cahokia game. I mean, we talked about after all talk, it was a win or go home kind of season, but it's really been kind of a win or go home season ever since week 4, because there was little chance of us going 0-4 and then, you know, winning the last 5. I mean, once you go 0-4, a lot of things change, attitudes change. There's no room for error. But so I feel like we've kind of been in playoff mode since the Cahokia game week 4. So I don't know that there's any added pressure, because Centralia game, there was no room for error. The Carbondale game, I mean, this is just, for us, one of what has been 6 games in a row that we have to win. And so, you know, I feel like the kids are prepared. I think they've played a tough schedule this year. I think they've seen good competition. I think they've seen physical teams, fast teams. I don't think we're going to be surprised by anything we get. It's just a matter of continuing to get better and executing the game plan.
If you had to compare Mattoon to a team on your schedule, is there one that they're similar to?
There's some similarities with the first 2 games, for 2 of the first 3 games. Like, there's some similarities to Dunlap, I think. Kind of remind me of a Dunlap kind of team. That's probably the best comparison I can give you. I would say there's some similarities with Galesburg, but Galesburg to me was the best team we've played so far as overall offensive line, defensive line, everybody included. I thought Galesburg was awfully solid everywhere. Maybe they're not quite that good, but certainly a Dunlap kind of team.
Size-wise, they're pretty good size.
They are, and they always are. They've always had big kids. They used to call that years ago corn-fed kids, right? So yeah, they're good size.
In the football world, we call that Metamora kids.
Yeah, Metamora kids. Yeah, but you know, you and I have had this discussion that once you get north of Interstate 70 for some reason, it's all of a sudden everybody changes. Everyone gets bigger. It seems like the schools are our size, many of them, but their kids are bigger. We're seeing that a lot, and they've got some good size. They've got some good skilled kids. So they're a good football team. They're well coached. They've been kind of a playoff team almost every year. They're either in the playoffs or in the playoff hunt, and they were 5-5 last year and a playoff team. So we, as I said, it's a good challenge for us. We're excited about it. It's we're going to get in. We got to be a good football team to get there.
Well, they've got you on size, but I think even with the Haywoods and the Altoffs and things like that, for the most part, take away Cahokia, and you've probably matched or been equal to pretty much everyone on quickness. You feel like that's the case this time?
I would say you're right. I don't feel like anybody's been a lot faster than us. I don't look at teams and think that we got beat because they were quicker than we were. I think our kids have matched up pretty well with everybody in the speed and quickness area. We have been outsized. I think we've been beat on some depth at times where we just, I think, got tired because we didn't have a lot of, backup kids in the offensive and defensive lines. But I don't feel like quickness has been a reason for our losses. I think, little things, it's an inconsistency maybe, but So yeah, I don't think we go into this game thinking they're going to be quicker than us or overly quick and it's something we can't handle. I think you always worry about maybe the size factor if they want to line up. But our kids have responded to about every challenge they've gotten, whether it's adversity off the field or adversity of game night or weather delays or referee delays or whatever it is. Our kids seem to have really grown accustomed to kind of a motto we have of don't flinch. And it's important for us that our kids don't let the situation dictate to them. Make sure you control the situation by the way you handle it and the way you respond. And so I think we're excited to go up there. It's a great place to play, great facility. We're familiar with it, and they'll take good care of us when we get there. And hopefully we can take a good crowd and make a good showing.
I want to touch on that crowd thing in just a moment, but I wanted to bring up something. In the 4 of the last 5 games, the 4 wins that you've had, the one thing I think that stood out to me is that you've got off to fairly good starts in all those games.
Yeah.
And even in the Cahokia game, you didn't let them get a 2 or 3 touchdown lead and have to come back on them. And in the Centralia game, you only got down 1 score. You're able to come back and actually build a lead and get that 2-score lead that you've been trying to get all year. So that's, I'm sure, a key to Friday night as well.
Yeah, nobody wants to play from behind a couple of scores, and I think as the offense has played better, the defense has responded, and I think we've helped them out a little more. I was a little bothered early in the year. I think our defense played better than they did statistically, but the offense did nothing to help them. And so I feel like our offense has been much more of a benefit to our defensive side of the ball, and because we've been able to keep some offenses off the field by sustaining drives and getting first downs. Our third down conversion the last couple of weeks has greatly increased our seasonal average. And we were in the 20s at one point. Now we're close to 40% conversion on third down. The goal is usually college teams say 45 to 46% third down conversions, where you use kind of a benchmark. So we're getting closer to that now because we've been more consistent and we're driving the football. So no different this week, same thing.
The game is Friday night at 7 o'clock.
It is.
Mattoon is just a little more than 2 hours away. So it's not a whole lot different than a trip to Althoff or Cahokia
really.
or someplace like that. Not one of the long, it's not the 6.5-hour trip to Galesburg or the long trip to Dunlap next year. So a good opportunity for a team that's playing for its playoff life to get some good support from the crowd.
Yeah, and I know we'll have a lot of fans there, and they went to Centralia and they bounced right back the next day, gave us a good crowd on Saturday afternoon, short notice and a lot of conflicts. But what I love about our away crowds is our away crowds are loyal and they're loud and they're rowdy, and we're going to need that. We want to come to our sideline and hear our people, and I'm sure Mattoon will have a good crowd. So ought to be a good night. Get a chance to come out and watch us fight for our playoff life. We'd love to have you involved in that fight with us, and we'll do everything we can to get it.
Straight up 57 from Marion to Mattoon, 7 o'clock Friday night. The Wildcats in the Mattoon Greenway. This is Kerry Martin. He's the head coach of the Marion Wildcats. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.